No, 4:15 start time. 4 o'clock check-in.
That's not what the agenda says.
Sign in election
Yeah, we can.
Did you focus that? Oh no, please don't let me go see that. I'm sorry, you have to have it in 5 words. Oh, you got it. Virginia, did you check your proxies? Don't check your proxies
Hey, not me. Your neighbors are right
You did obey the speaker. You did obey the speaker.
It's not at all. It's not. Even the ones in our neighborhood garage. The ones in the white garage. Folks, in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and start up. We've got one person checking in the back. It's no big deal. We're going to call for final on proxies. If anybody's got any proxies that you're still holding, please go back and check them in at this time so you can get them credited. Go ahead and check in any proxies that you've got. What we'll do is we'll just update your ballot with the number of proxies that you brought in, and Danielle's in the back verifying them. For everybody who doesn't know her, that was Danielle in the back. She is the representative from AMG who works as our community manager. Essentially, she gets stuck with all the secretarial duties from day to day and does all the different paperwork for us, handles all those phone calls that you guys do and everything, anything that they can make from the community. She's the #1 person. I'm Rob Smith, for anybody who hasn't met me. To my right, Chris Martin, who served as the vice president for the last year. Bridget Desiree, who served as our treasurer. John Rodman, who served as our member at large. And on the far left from my far left is Alicia Jones, who served as a secretary in the last year. Today's meeting is essentially to do the vote for the next year's board. I appreciate you guys coming out today. Everybody collected proxies, took time to talk with your neighbors. Hopefully you've had a chance to check in on the website, read the information we were putting out on the different people who have to date put in and said that they were interested. There's also a survey that I'm supposed to mention. Make sure everybody got a survey. It's basically an opportunity for you to tell us some of the things that we're not going to have time to get to. In the interest of everybody's time, ours and yours included, we want to be here all night. I don't think you guys want to be here all night, so some issues we may not get a chance to talk about today. If we don't, you got a couple options. Whether I'm on the board after tonight or not, I can always talk to you about everything that's happened up to this day. If I'm on the board after today, you can talk to me about whatever's going on. I'm always available. There's also any of the board members, either the new ones or our past board members, will always be willing to talk to you about anything they can update you on. And then there's also our community manager. You can call into AMG. She'll give you as much as she can. She can only give you the information, though, that we give her. A lot of times people get it confused. The name community manager makes it sound like she's the boss, and she is absolutely stuck in the middle. So please don't beat her up too much. If you call her and ask her for an answer and she doesn't get back to you fast with it, it's because she has to relay that to the board. So the board always takes responsibility. Again, whether we're on the board or not, the board's always the final responsible party for any answers that you're waiting for. So please don't beat up our community manager too much. She can only answer what we told her. So the surveys will give you an opportunity to put some information out there and to tell us what you're really interested in, what you want to know about. There's also the email address, which is the AmandGlenn, HOA@gmail.com. That's available through the AmandGlenn, HOA.com website or .org website. You can go there, get community updates, get all the information, and get a hold of the board members. And we got the Facebook page. For anybody who's not on Facebook, you can go on Facebook if you'd like, AmandGlenn Friends, which isn't always AmandGlenn Friends. Sometimes it's AmandGlenn Angry Family, but it's the best way to kind of find out what's actually going on, have a chance to kind of converse directly with your neighbors. Then there's also the Nextdoor website, which is nextdoor.com. You go on there and you register your website or your address. Your address links you directly to our neighborhood. We had a few people coming in here at the end, so just want to give them a chance to get checked in. Tonight, as we get the votes, once we get the votes collected up, we're going to go ahead and do a community update, kind of give the information in the interim while we're waiting for the votes to be collected and actually tallied up. We need a couple volunteers who are willing to be those impartial parties who will oversee the vote counting process, so that if somebody later on says the votes weren't counted correctly, they can actually say yes, they were. So what I would like to ask for is not a family member of a person who's running, not a direct either side neighbor of somebody who's running, somebody who has absolutely no connection, basically. I get at least 3 members. Okay. When I see at least 3 people here. If there's somebody else who wants to join them, you're welcome to join them. When we get ready to take the votes up, those 3 people who raised your hand at least can get with Danielle in the back. And then if there's somebody else you'd just like to tag along and see what's going on, nobody has a problem with that whatsoever. There's a couple people I'd like to thank off the bat. Spencer Kelly, I think I saw you wander in, didn't I? Yeah, I didn't think you were going to be here tonight, so I didn't have anything planned for you. I have something planned for you, but we want to recognize you for your voluntary service that you've done this year. For anybody that doesn't know Spencer, Spencer has put in a lot of extra time for the neighborhood. He's not on the board. He doesn't get anything paid for it. He's done a lot of extra things around the neighborhood. So if I could just get a round of applause. Throughout the year, we've had a lot of people help out with our different committees that we put together. Spencer served on the amenities committee. Shanda, who's sitting in the front row here, has served as our architectural committee chairperson. And she's kind of stayed in the back door, next scene, just kind of hiding out, taking care of things, and has helped approve some of those more difficult different architectural requests that we've had through the neighborhood. So I appreciate everything Shannon has done for us. So thanks for Shannon. We've also got Cindy McIntyre, who served as the chairperson of our treasurer, or basically of our treasury committee. What we call that this year, the finance committee. The finance committee. So he served as the chairperson of the finance committee, and he's assisted the treasurer. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have been able to get most of the budgetary stuff figured out that we have. So again, Cindy, thank you for your service. John Penry's not able to make it tonight, but he's going to try to make it if he can. He has served as the chairperson of our amenities committee. That was essentially a group we brought together to figure out the playground, which is still kind of a project in the works. But in addition to the playground, they took on the amenities, which is things like the flags that went up at the front of the neighborhood, some of the decorating stuff that the social committee was trying to work on. So again, John couldn't make it tonight. I don't think any of his family members are here right now, but we just want to recognize him. And then, see, the only other committee I can think of is Virginia Pope. Virginia's here somewhere. Virginia, where are you? Virginia's hiding out over there. She took on the social committee this year, which they took quite a beating trying to get a lot of the social events together. So again, just thank social and thank her for her commitment to the social committee this year. And I know she's going to hate it, but I'm also going to recognize my wife, who's not only taken on the role of watching her husband get beat up all year as the president of the association, but she stepped in and helped out with the social committee towards the end. Virginia had some other commitments that kind of held her back, and Suzanne stepped in. So my wife, Suzanne. We had a lot of other volunteers, and the list would go on and on and on. And I think at one point we had a partial list, but there were a lot of people that we just want to thank. All of our committee members who helped us out, the volunteers who stepped in for the flowers, the volunteers who jumped in to help us out at the last minute with the June 1st event, which was an absolute success. We really appreciate all that. The same thing's going to happen next year. Again, regardless of who's on the board, it's going to absolutely fly off of volunteers. We absolutely have to rely on the neighbors that we've got around us, and those people who have the abilities that we seek. There's just, everybody's got a little talent here and there. We're just going to keep reaching out for those. The June 1st event was just the beginning. That was, like I said, it was an absolute success. We were excited about the way it went off. We have kind of a long-term vision for what can happen for the neighborhood as far as that. We'd like to keep pushing forward with that. It'll happen again, hopefully in fall. And again, if I'm not on the board, I think you should absolutely demand that your next board do the exact same thing and just keep building upon that. It brings a lot to our neighborhood. It's got a lot of potential to it. So we're really happy with that event. I thank everybody. A lot of you are here tonight. I thank everybody for your time and commitment that you put in this year. I don't want to forget about that. So thank you, everybody. I want to thank my fellow board members. Chris put in a lot of time this year, working on a lot of contract negotiations, a lot of things that were behind the scenes, and quite honestly, a lot of things that I got credit for. Just because my name is out there in front so much, sometimes I get the press, good and bad. A lot of times it was Chris kind of working behind the scenes, arguing out those finer points of everything from our contract negotiations with AMG as we left Hawthorne, all the way down to a lot of our savings that we found. And I appreciate everything Chris did. Chris, thank you for your service this year. I really appreciate it. Same thing for Mr. Robin here. John put in a lot of behind-the-scenes work. We joked around that John asked the crazy questions. And I'm not going to lie to you, he asked some crazy questions sometimes. One thing he threw out one time, I remember at a little meeting we were having by the pool, was, what if we had to replace the entire pool? What would that cost? And we laughed at it. I laughed at it. They're not going to replace the entire pool. John, they're replacing the entire pool. Thank you. Good job, John. So thank you, John. Sometimes the crazy questions are the questions that get answered the way you want them to. So, there's a lot of stuff that you just don't see all the time. Bridget, she has put up with so much from the very beginning. We sat down at a table, and if there's anything that can determine whether or not 5 people are going to be able to do something successful, it's put 5 people in a room and ask them who's going to be the president, the treasurer, the secretary, the member at large, and the vice president, and they have to work it out. We did it in like 45 minutes. We were pretty proud of ourselves. But the one position nobody wanted to do was the treasurer position, and Bridget took it on anyways. It was not something she was real excited about. She worked with Sydney to make it happen. But if there's ever somebody who had no interest in a particular job but did it anyways, it was her. And she did a lot of little side things this year, and I really appreciate it, Bridget. Thank you for everything. Last but not least is absolutely Alicia Jones. Alicia and I have worked side by side throughout the entire year. There's really nobody on the board that I spent more time just going back and forth, and it's because the secretary and the president, it's just the way things work out. She's always putting together the agenda. She did a lot of the work that the management company would normally do. And with Hawthorne, it was because we were taking control from Hawthorne. We felt like Hawthorne had had too much in the past, and it really wasn't their fault necessarily. It was just the way the builder had kind of set things up. It's the way it always goes. So we wanted to kind of take that control back and kind of get it within the neighborhood. And then when we brought in AMG, Danielle absolutely wanted to jump in and dig right in, but we still left those duties with Alicia, and she's just basically worked with Danielle. So I absolutely want to thank Alicia for her time. A lot of the little dollars that were saved in the background were just because Alicia would come in and say, I think we can get that for $5 cheaper here, I think we can get it for $10 cheaper there, and that all added up, so I really appreciate it. And then there's Danielle, who got stuck in the back end back there. Again, Danielle takes on the day-to-day brunt. She gets a lot of the phone calls. She handles everything. Of course, she's getting paid for it, but we pay other people to do things, and they don't do it with half the interest that she puts into it. She really does care about her job. She's been doing this for more than 10 years now, and with the same company, which is unheard of in this area. So thank you very much, Danielle, for everything you did. So with that, we'll go ahead and call the meeting itself to order. Oh, one more.
We all got to recognize Robert Smith. Nobody put in more time than Rob this year. People just can't imagine. Almost every day, piles of emails, phone calls, meetings, problems, stuff coming in the mail. So anyways, if there's one person that kind of made this year a success, it was definitely Mr. Smith.
All right, and with that, we'll call the meeting to order officially, and we'll go ahead and call for a quorum from the secretary. Do we have a quorum this evening? All right, so I've indicated we do have a quorum, which means we can proceed with the meeting. Again, thank you all for showing up. If we didn't have a quorum, we'd have to do this again, and again, and again. So it really does matter. We had to have the quorum tonight, so I very much appreciate it. So what we'll go do is we'll go ahead and announce the official candidates. The nominating committee, the way the outline of the bylaws calls is that there's to be a nominating committee. Fortunately, it doesn't say how you do the committee. So what we did was we just made it real simple. We made the board the nominating committee, and anybody who wanted to be a member or wanted to be nominated gets nominated. So the nominating committee is officially formed right here. Right now we have Roger Bell, Virginia Poe, Cindy McIntyre, Jonathan Henry, Rob Smith, and Alicia Jones. Is there anybody else who would like to nominate somebody from the floor or who would like to be nominated at this time? I call for nominations at this time from the floor.
I'd like to nominate Trey Hasty.
Trey Hasty, are you present?
Yeah.
Somebody to second that nomination?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a second for the nomination. Mr. Hasty, do you accept the nomination?
Yeah.
All right, so we have Mr. Hasty will be added to the end. Trey, it will be called up at last. What we're going to do is just going to work through. There's a form that needs to be filled out.
No, everybody needs to write his name on the
Yep,
back.
added to the, add Mr. Hasty's name is Trey Hasty, T-R-E-Y,
Yep.
H-A-S-T-Y.
Yep.
Add Mr. Tracy, Mr. Tracy, Mr. Hasty. Don't be too hasty. Add him, please, to the form there so you can vote for him on the ballot. All right, so what I'll do now is I'll ask the nominating committee to consider each of the names in front of you: Roger Bell, Virginia Poe, John Henry, Rob Smith, Cindy McIntyre, Alicia Jones, and Trey Hasty. Is there no discussion? We move to the vote. All those in favor of nominating all those parties mentioned, say aye. Vote carries. At this point, we'll go ahead and move forward with the first person. What we're going to do is we're going to call each of the candidates up. We're going to give each of the candidates an opportunity to say a couple words. I'm going to try to keep it to shorter than a minute or two, just to keep it short, nothing major. And then we'll open the floor up to each candidate to receive a few questions. If there's questions that you have that go beyond, it's going to go 5-6 people if there's a lot of questions. What we'll do is we'll ask you again to refer to the survey that we had. But Mr. Bell is the first person. I don't think Roger, unless he snuck in the back. Roger contacted us earlier this month, I think it was, said that he would not be able to make it tonight, but he was still interested in being on the ballot. He posted his information online earlier this month. He filled out some of the information there, so you'll just have to go based off of that. Virginia Poe, if you'd like to come up, ma'am.
I'm Virginia Pugh. I stay back in the neighborhood on 3056 Haywood Lane, and I've been in the community for 3 years now, come October. The reason that I decided to run is because pretty much I do volunteer, and I did volunteer to be on the social committee, and I was on the head of the social and amenities committee at the beginning. And then, I'm social, I guess some of my neighbors would say, social bug. I have ran a business for 8 years. My husband's a business owner. I also help people set up the businesses that I own. I own a mental health practice. My husband has a trucking company. I've done a lot of practice setups. I've sat on 4 different boards, as you can see on my platform and my information that's on the Almonds Glen website. I think where I said that I would bring to the board and what my experience and my background is, also keep it simple. I'm not a person that's, that's nitpicky. I'm just, if it makes sense and in this background and evidence to make it make sense, then I'll vote for it. If it's not making sense and you can prove that it could make sense later, then I'll vote for it. But I think where I'm at is I want to just keep things simple. I think that's, a lot of people get confused about what goes on in the background. And to keep things simple, to explain it A, B, C, D, that's what I think I can bring to the board. Any questions? Yes.
When you come into the neighborhood and you take a right, there's a dog-eared fence instead of a shadow box fence. You're aware of what I'm talking about? It's like a regular fence with regular slats instead of shadow box like all the rest of everyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do to deal with that?
What would I do to do with it, or what am I going to do to do with it? I think that issue's already been addressed. As far as the architect department, they would have to deal with it, and then also we'd have to vote for it as a board. At the moment, if it comes up to be an issue, then I'd have to see what the evidence is behind it. If it was there before we got there, there's different situations that's dealing with it, then I'd have to know what the issues are first before I can say what I'm going to do with the deal with it.
Anybody else? Listen. All right, the next person up would be Jonathan Penry. Again, Mr. Penry was unable to make it. He had a family emergency. He stopped by my house right before I had to come up here. So he is going to try to make it. There's a possibility he'll pop in at the very end. But if he doesn't make it in time, he just wanted me to express that he's very interested and dedicated. He also, like I said, served on one of the committees this year. So please take that into consideration. He also posted stuff on the website. Next up is me, so let's go ahead and carry right over there.
Oh, really? He's going by the list.
Yes, in front of me. I'm going by the list, I'm sorry. I'll keep it simple. I talk all the time, so I'm always available. I've tried to be available for the last year. Nothing's going to change about the way I do things. If you have a question about how I vote or why I'm voting that way, or you'd like to see me vote a different way on the board, I'd always encourage people to come to me. I'm going to apply the experience I've taken over the last year to how I proceed for the next year. There will be some changes in the way we do things, I think, but it always comes down to a 5-person board. No one person controls anything. Just because I set the position of the president this year doesn't mean that I have any more power over anything. 5 people walk into a room, 5 people vote. I didn't agree with every vote that we made this year, and I also won some votes that I wanted this year. So nothing's going to change in the way I carry myself. I'd again ask for your vote this year. Next up is Sydney McIntyre. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Does anybody have any questions for me? You're used to running things. Go ahead, Paul.
So last night on Facebook, there was this huge debacle about fireworks that are happening on weekends past 9 o'clock at night. And it was tossed around the room that perhaps, we should think about outlawing fireworks in the neighborhood. What's your stance on that?
My personal stance, or do you want my board vote?
No, I don't want you to vote for it. I'm not calling for a vote. I want to know what you think about that.
I deal with fireworks all the time. Fireworks calls for service, and it's a constant thing because I'm a police officer. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know I'm a cop. We get calls for fireworks all the time, and I'll tell you exactly what I tell everybody that responds to that call. You live in South Carolina. South Carolina law says that you can fire fireworks off at any time. There are various noise ordinances that can be enforced. If you disagree with something like fireworks, I think you should call the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. If they can enforce it, they will. If they can't, they won't. As far as the neighborhood, though, it's not something the neighborhood can control. I know that somebody talked about the idea of a HOA control over that. Sure, we could do that. I just need 222 people to sign off on that to make an amendment to the bylaws. So to start collecting those up. But that's not going to happen, I don't think, anytime soon. I can't even get fences approved, so. Personally, I don't pay much attention to them, though. That's my personal feeling. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Well, when you were talking, you said all the board members have the same votes. And I think I recall from when you posted your stuff that you said you want to be president again next year. Is there a reason for that, or if you're not?
It's the only thing I'm good at, honestly.
He's right.
Everybody that comes to the, yeah, Sydney can say it, he's right. Everybody that comes to the board should have and it's a good question. Like, why would I run for the president again if everybody has the same power? The president's role is to generally be the spokesperson, to get out there and to put their face in front of the punches, to answer questions, and to speak on behalf of the board on major issues. I'm generally pretty good at that. I don't mind getting out there and doing that. I post probably 99% of the web content that's posted on the website. So as far as just speaking for the board, that's what I'm good at. I also interface with the management company on a day-to-day basis. I'm the person who talks with our different vendors around the neighborhood. So if somebody has a landscaping issue, if a landscaper just ran something over, you've got your choice. Somebody who's quiet, who generally just likes to kind of work in the background and take care of things in the background, can go talk and speak to the landscaper, or the police officer can go speak to them. And that's what I do for a living, is talk to people. So that's generally what I'm good at, so that's why I said I would go ahead and ask to be the president again. I wouldn't be a good treasurer. I could do the vice president slot, because it's generally the same thing. I'm a horrible secretary. The only other thing left over would be the member at large, which is something else I could do. But I think for the most part, I've done a good job as the president this year, and I interface with people on a day-to-day basis in a way that I think people continue. They'd just like to see again. So that's why I said I did that. Anybody else? All right, next up, Sydney McIntyre.
I don't think you might, I don't think my voice carries it. People would probably tell you. First of all, what I wanted to draw your attention to, you see I don't have a picture up there? Look at Rob's picture. That's why I don't have a picture up there. I just wanted you guys to look at that. First of all, I wanted to let you guys know, I really had no intention of running for the board this year. I enjoyed being on the finance committee. I enjoyed helping steer the finances, putting together the budget, making sure we got things together. But this board's done a phenomenal job. I worked with them very closely through the entire year on the budget. If this board was all running again, I had no intention of running against it. So it wasn't my desire to displace anybody on the board. But several of them have decided to step down, as well as Brigida. And it's my desire, if I do get elected to the board, is to seek the treasurer's position. Like Rob said, it's because that's what I'm good at. I do finances every day for work. I've managed budgets as small as my home budget, which, by the way, is really small. And I've managed multi-million-dollar budgets where I was responsible for spending $50 and $100 million on particular capital investment projects. So I'm really good with numbers. I can tear apart numbers, and I can work with other people to make sure that when we get to the bottom, that our budgets balance out. Chris and I worked closely this year. Chris did a great job negotiating an awful lot of contracts this year. It's why you see the budgets in such good shape this year. It's why we set so well financially. And honestly, coming into last year, we had no idea. We just didn't know where we were financially. But the board did a really good job of bringing that in line. So that's pretty much it. A lot of you know me or have seen me around the community. I'm the one with the new Labrador puppy. And I want to tell you, if you want to meet everybody in the community, go buy a puppy. Because everybody comes and talks to you when you walk your puppy. But that's about it. If anybody's got any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them if I can, or make something up if I can. Okay, very good. Thanks.
Next up would be Alicia Jones.
I'm going to sit because one, my back hurts. I tried to run today and I'm not a good runner. And I'm sick. So I'm Alicia Jones. This will be my second sort of attempt of being on the board and organizing the community. I am a nerd. I love spreadsheets. I love project planning. I love calling people and saying, have you done X? You said you were going to do X. Why did you not do X? Because that's what I do for a living. I've done it for 20 years with a big company. So what I offer is, again, the skill sets that I use every day, which would be managing the community in the background, making sure we get the best deals. When we sit down for a vote, if it's like $100, I'm like, why did you not get it for $95? Like, did you not tell them we have 391 families in this community and we can get, everybody to come storm your ice cream shop or whatever it may be, so we can get a better deal. Excuse me, my voice is going. Other things, I love going out and exploring the community, so I will tell you everywhere you can take your kid for free. I'll tell you everywhere you can go and get a good deal if you want to go out for a group. That's just the nature of me, going and finding information and then making sure people can actually use it. So why would I want to be on this board again? I think we have a cool community. I'm a little bit of an introvert, so I'll try to get around to everybody. But I just think it's really cool where you can walk out of your house and sort of hang out with people that you actually like. You don't always get a choice, so you actually sort of socialize, and your kids grow up here and they can ride their bike, and I don't freak out too much if they go down the street now. Can keep a tight rein on. But it's a cool community. I can call people up and say, hey, did you know this? Or can you go get my mail? I don't have to pay anybody to do that. So I think it's a valuable asset to have in this community that we're all taking. Questions before my voice goes? My favorite color is blue.
Trey, you're on the spot because you didn't have to. Trey Hasty.
I don't need that. All right, my name's Trey Hasty. For those of you that don't know me, I've been in the neighborhood for coming up on 2 years in August. Me and my wife and our little English bulldog that you might see running around. He's very friendly and he likes to greet people. For running for the board, it's something me and Chris had discussed. That's why he nominated me. I just never was kind of touch and go if I was going to do it, so I did not run or announce it before this. But I'm very happy to be running. The two things I think I really would bring to the board is professionally, I'm a real estate appraiser. And one of the things that the board's main purpose is to protect property values. Well, my job is to understand what affects property values. That's what I do for a living is I go to other neighborhoods, go to other houses, look at their houses and compare them to other things just to figure out what is going on in the present day market. The other thing that affords me to do is to go to other neighborhoods. Part of what you have to do is look at what their HOA is doing, figure out what they get for their HOA fees, things like that. So while I don't have experience in actually serving on an HOA board, I have questioned a lot of HOA boards to figure out what all goes into it. And so professionally, that's what I could bring to the table is an understanding of property values. Does something actually affect property values, or does it just affect the marketability of your house? Or is it just a personal preference that to you is a big deal, but unfortunately to a lot of people might not be? If you actually are truly having, a settling issue, unfortunately that's something we're going through, that's going to affect property values. The pool issue is a marketability thing. You can still sell your house, generally speaking, for the same amount because the pool doesn't mean everything to everybody. However, it's going to be on the market for a longer time, and that could in turn affect property values. So it's that understanding of those things, I know they were discussing the playground earlier. That's another thing that's to be marketability, but not to the same level as the pool. So it's those things, where should we spend our money, because how does it really come back and benefit us? So I have a very good understanding of that. And then personally, I believe a lot of people vote with their actions. There's a lot of vagueness to things that are written in the HOA bylaws. And so one of the things we had to come up was the trash cans. And some of you might recognize me, I was the guy that was going door to door for the trash cans. To me, the way that should have been interpreted, because it is vague, is most people had their trash cans on the side of their house. You voted with your actions. Now, if there was only about 20 of us that had that, I would say, okay, people voted with their actions. That's not something they approve of. So I think that while we can't hold an election or hold a vote for every small detail, I'm a big fan of people vote with their actions. And as a board member, I think that while my opinion is one that you've elected, if I get elected, my opinion doesn't really matter any more than anybody else's. It's my job is to look around and see what's going on and try to represent everybody's opinion. And so those are opinions that people voted on, in my opinion, with their actions. Personally, I'm the guy that sometimes if you go for a walk, you'll see me in my driveway brewing beer. If you ever want one, stop by. People tend to like them. If we're out there brewing, chances are we have some too. So anybody have any questions?
What's your address?
6179 Kilcher. Yes.
How far did you go with the trash cans? How successful were you?
I got about half the neighborhood, and then unfortunately I had some continuing education classes that this is about the second weekend in the last 6 months that I've been in town. So we got about 90 signatures, and I still have the petition, and whenever I get a clear day, hopefully I need to get back out there and get back at it. But it has not been forgotten, and I do still have the petition.
What position do you think you best have?
Probably member at large, because that seems to be the go-between between the neighborhood and the board. And I feel like that would be where I would best serve, is trying to be your voice to the board. Not that they're ignoring your voice, but I feel that that's really where my focus would be, is trying to look around and see what's going on. Yes, ma'am.
You say you are a real
Real estate appraiser.
appraiser, okay,
Yes, ma'am.
so then you're familiar with, I know about the trash.
Yeah.
I understand. And I know the controversy, how a lot of people say, why can't I put it? You know that everybody put a trash can in the front there, in the garage. That was a problem.
Not okay.
Not
Let's,
really.
yeah, we'll still, I'll ask the question before it away, because I know everybody can't hear you, but are you basically,
And ask me the question, how, because I know.
So-
word the question out, please.
Okay, so what she asked is if, as an appraiser, I would know that if everybody put their trash can in front of their house, that there is some unsightly there, it would affect marketabilities, and in turn that that's probably something that might affect property values. What we're looking for, and even in the petition I was going around with, in front of your garage, that's not typical. That's not what, there was only 4 or 5 houses in the neighborhood that was doing that. It's not what everybody was doing. People had it on the side of their house. which is the standard. That might not be what everybody wants, but going to other neighborhoods, looking around our neighborhood, having it located on the side of your house, on the garage side, the farthest most back corner on the side of your house seemed to be the community neighborhood standard. From an appraiser perspective, a professional point of view, it has no value, or it has no effect. It'll affect marketability, but as long as people are following that standard of, you know, if you put it on your front porch, put it in front of your garage, then that's going to be an HOA issue that might affect the neighborhood. Having it on the side of your house is not going to have any effect. Having it on the front of your house is only going to have a marketability effect. A lot of people aren't going to pay attention to it when they're buying the house. It's going to be something they notice 6 months later, and therefore that's not really going to affect your property value too much either. That answers
Thank
your
you.
question. All
I
right.
just wanted to clarify,
Yeah.
because I wasn't sure.
Well, I'm the only one last year to still ask the same question.
All right.
But you got a little bit of it, about the trash cans, the conflict of everybody's talking about contract, the trash cans, and some had this opinion, some had other opinions, some think it's this, and now, being on the board, and you can look at this board right here, and all last year was conflict. How would you handle it?
The way I try to handle conflict, like I was saying, is try to get a vote of the neighborhood by their actions. If it's something like fireworks, where maybe your actions don't necessarily aren't applicable, I guess. I'm using fireworks because that was a question that brought up earlier. Go around and poll some people. Whenever you're at a party, talk to people about it. Like, hey, you know, what do you think about those fireworks? See what's going on Facebook. I think the overwhelming majority of the neighborhood doesn't have a problem with fireworks. That's why they're shooting them off. But to go around and try to get a sense of what people want. It's not just my vote. You know, it's everybody's vote counts the same. And a lot of people don't necessarily have to vote with words. You can vote with your actions. You can vote with, you know, just your opinion on something, things like that. So go around and try to gather those opinions. My view of contract resolution. That's not always going to work. Sometimes it's going to be 50-50. Whatever the bylaws say is obviously going to trump all, but because of how vague those are. And then if it's 50-50, then you just try to work with people, figure out what they want. You know, there's always a compromise. There's a middle ground. If things are that close, it's 50-50. There's usually a way you can work something out. Anybody else? All right, thank you.
All right, so that's all the different people who are going to stand up and say something. Again, you've got the entire list in front of you. Some people weren't able to make it tonight, but they did post their information out in advance, so hopefully you can consider that. I think Danielle's just looking at me for the vote at this point, right? That's all we're doing. So this time I'm going to ask you to vote, and just to make sure everybody's clear on how you vote, you can vote for 5 individuals. You do not have 5 votes for instance, Cindy McIntyre. I can't give him my 5 votes tonight. I can give 5 votes, 1 vote for each individual. You don't have to vote for 5. If you only want to vote for 2 people, you can vote for 2 people. But you can vote for up to 5 individuals. If you do it wrong, your ballot will basically get destroyed. It won't do any good. So please make sure to, if you have a question, ask your neighbor, flag me down, come up and say, hey Rob, make sure you know what you're doing. But 5 different individuals is the max you can vote for. Anybody have any questions?
Hey, Rob, question real quick. What about the proxy votes? The people that just brought in proxy votes? Since Trey was added to the ballot, what happens to that?
With the proxy votes, did you do everything like mine? But if you've got proxy votes, so you've got different ballots for each person you've got, right? Write Trey's name into each of those, and then you can either vote for him or you can vote for somebody else, but that's how you do it. So vote for the number of people you're voting for. You just vote for their ballot.
Okay.
Those individuals who identified themselves as being interested in helping out with the ballot count, if you just want to go back to the back. Anybody else who's interested in just kind of watching, you want to be a part of it, you want to see what's going on, you are welcome to go back there.
We got a new neighborhood.
Alright, the next thing we're going to do, we'll go back there taking care of the votes. The final thing this board is going to do is try to put a little bit of information out there when we can. So we're going to go into a little bit of a community update here. Speaking of a couple different things. What's the first thing up?
Alrighty, pool update. We'll start right out with the big one there. So everybody probably remembers the state of the pool at the end of the last year there. People hear me okay? Alright. So currently, I guess I'll just start with where we are at this point. At this point, we've got a solid base to build a pool on. I think that's the biggest part of the whole pool repair. That was what failed with the old pool. The old pool itself didn't fail. It was the fact that it was built on fill dirt and debris. And over time, the debris under the pool decayed, turned into black goo, which didn't settle evenly because there were patches of it rather than layers of it. So anyways, one side of the pool sank about 5.5 inches further than the other side. So couldn't maintain the circulation of the pool, wasted a lot of water over the years. And so we had some tests done. We had some core samples drilled under the pool and 43 feet down around the outside of the pool, trying to determine what was going on under the pool. It turns out they detected a bunch of what we call that organic material. Smells like swamp material, the black gooey decayed dirt under there. And but what really we had no idea what was under there, and with all the testing, until we dug into it. So long story short, our excavator operator, he's been doing that a long time. He just kept digging until he got to the bottom. And long story short, there weren't layers of organic material under there, like the surveys kind of implied. It turned out there were patches. So there was no way to build on patches of organic material and not have the pool. It's all right if the pool settles evenly. A few inches of settlement that's going straight down would have been fine. But in our case, there were patches of organic material that was allowing one side of the pool to sink faster than the other. So all that stuff had to come out. Long story short, I never thought we'd see them dig all the way down until they hit solid, what they call original dirt. And they did. They went actually about 20 to 23 feet down in one area, and under the kiddie pool area, about 13 feet down. And since then, originally the plan was to fill it back in with red clay. Long story short, we asked a few more questions, and there's no red clay. It's what they call blue quarry stone product. It's a little bit similar to Crusher Run, but it's a lot harder. It was rolled in 8-inch layers with a vibratory roller. It's the equivalent of a 30,000-pound roller going over. Well, I felt the neighborhood shaking for a few days. Long story short, we've got a rock-solid base going all the way up from as far as 25 feet down, 23 feet down, up to the level of the ground. We had a settlement test done over the last 3 weeks, and just a test to make sure that even after all that, we don't have settlement. That's been our main concern. And less than 6/1000th of an inch of settlement. So it's actually, there's less settlement than anyone had predicted we'd have. We could have had up to 1/10 of an inch per week, and people wouldn't have had a problem with that. Essentially, we had next to no settling. So we're ready to build a new pool. So came a long way.
When are they going to start building? When are they going to start digging?
It could happen any given day. The tests are all in, the base is in place. There's a contract with J.L. Thompson. They've been building pools. JL's been building pools for 60 straight years, built thousands of pools, and he's ready to dig in. So there's nothing stopping us at this point.
John, what did that cost us?
We had we did budget $10,000 to hire our own engineer. Reason being, we needed a little bit of more expertise. We didn't want to just go with the Lennar engineer, who we had a whole bunch of disagreements with over the last few years, and with Summit and Lennar there. We brought our own engineer in to study and kind of give feedback on the plan. That's when things really turned around, and it seemed like at this point, everyone is kind of playing well together. If there's something that's recommended, like for example, one thing came up recently, this new base is not conducive to water running out. It's not going to drain water. And one of our problems before was having water under the pool. So we recommended a drain. You know, what if, first the thought was, well, there wouldn't be water under there again because A, the pool's not going to leak. But I had to ask the stupid question, well, what if water does get under there, right? At this point, we spent all this money, or Lennar's spending all this money, we don't want water in the pool. It took about less than 2 minutes for everybody to agree, yeah, it wouldn't hurt to put a drain under there. And then it was, oh, well, what kind of drain would we put under there? One of the engineers recommended a type of drain. And then it's like, well, who's going to do it? And they're like, well, you got the equipment here. All right. It took about 2 minutes to decide, oh, let's put some drainage under the new pool. And the only thing we've got to decide since then, and I haven't talked with anybody since then, but at that point it was decided to put a drain under the deep end of the pool. But then I was thinking I think we should put a perimeter drain around the whole bottom of the main pool. And I haven't said anything to anybody about that yet, but I'm willing to bet that if that was recommended and people agreed on it, we'd have a perimeter drain. So anyways, it's progressing. Any other questions?
Is it going to be the same shape and size as the other one was?
Yes. Yeah, it's going to match up pretty much exactly what we had before.
This year?
It'll be done by by next year when the pool opens.
So is the same size pool sustainable for 391 families?
That's been a question that's come up. People have talked about building a second pool down in the phase 2 or phase 3 area. We don't have a way to build another pool. And the city's going to give us a finance report. Another question. Another call.
So I thought we saw that there was only supposed to be really 61 lifeguard. Is that correct? Or was still need to maintain it?
Yeah, we're not required to maintain any lifeguards.
Yeah, I'm sure, thank you.
Just to clarify, we are not required to have any.
We are not required to have any lifeguards. The board will make a decision. Our decision at the last board meeting that we had regarding that was to still maintain lifeguards, but we are not required by state law anymore to maintain lifeguards.
And why is that?
Why we're not required to? Because we changed the classification. We got the classification changed by DHEC, and they said that basically, based on what we have, we don't have to have lifeguards. We decided to have lifeguards because we didn't want to drown. So we'll look at that again as we go into the next year, but it'll depend on the use of the pool, the number of people coming to the pool. I think a lot of that comes into play. Yes, sir.
Does that give the option, the possible option in the future of kind of off hour swimming, you know, off the library and stuff like that?
If the board was to make the decision that they wanted to not have lifeguards there and to open it, somebody from the neighborhood would have to go down and open the gates and let people in. And then if somebody goes in the pool and throws a beer bottle in the middle of the pool, we have to pay $3,000 to drain the water and put it back in. So we do open ourselves up to some vandalism, but all that will be a part of the decisions that have to be made as we go forward. It's kind of a moving target, I guess would be the best thing. If there's any other questions about that, I don't mind at all answering all those. We're running out of time, so I want to make sure to give, Chris is going to take like 30 seconds to give us a quick meter update on the water meter.
So the last meeting we had, we talked about splitting off the meter that actually goes to the pool. The meter was running all the water that went to the pool as well as the water that went to the irrigation system around the neighborhood. And so what happened was all of the irrigation water that was being sprayed out, we were being charged a per gallon charge on the water as well as sewer charges. Well, obviously that water is not going into the sewer, so we're wasting a whole lot of money there. The solution was to actually split the line and put in a secondary meter that Lancaster Water and Sewer will now be reading. One of them will have sewer charges, obviously the one going to the pool, and the one going to the irrigation system will not have sewer charges. It will just be charged for the water that we use. The estimated savings on this is going to be about $4,000 a year, so that's one of the items that we accounted for in Sydney's budget.
Speaking of Sydney, Sydney, would you mind coming up here and giving a quick treasurer's report?
President, Treasurer, do you have any?
Yes. Everybody know that I'm the treasurer, but Sydney's going to present the budget for you guys right now. Okay, and we did a great job.
Thanks, President. We'll just go quickly over, this is a 6-month budget, look at what we budgeted last year to how we're going 6 months through. As all you all know, with your family budget and everything else, a 6-month budget isn't going to be exact. You're going to have variances due to timing, due to revenue coming in, some expenditures that you just didn't know when they were going to come, but you had to budget for them sometime. Basically, through the 6-month comparison, I just took the total combined budget last year and split it by 50%, just took 50% of it. But on the revenue side, we're really, really close. There's not a lot of difference. Total revenue, we're only off $871. You know, that's less than 1/3%. And most of the variance is up here with our general assessment, but that just has to do with timing. You know, our June assessments are in, but some of them are going to come in a little late, so we're going to have a little variance in that. The numbers should be much closer, or it might be a little farther off, say, at the end of the year, but you're going to have a little variance due to the timing of those revenues coming in. We had a little bit more capital contributions. We didn't budget for those. Those are capital investments that we earn on the money that we have in the bank. That's the same thing that you have earning on stocks or anything like that. We didn't have much budget for those for our first year, so we left it blank. We'll take a look what we bring in this year, and we'll budget for that again next year for our investment. The market's been pretty good this year, so we've been in pretty good shape. We also did budget for any builders' assessments as well, because we really didn't know whether they were going to be completed with all the building and all the assessments were working in for the homeowners or not. But there was some building completed, so we did have about 2,600 come in for the building, and that offset. But overall, on the revenue side, we're in really good shape. We budgeted $111,000 and we're at $112,005. And then our provision for reserves, we budgeted $34,400 to go in. We put in $33,600 so far. That number will gel up a little closer come the end of the year when we get our final budget. What I can tell on the revenue side, and the way it looks like our contributions to reserves, we're right where we need to be. So good shape. Go to the next one. The expenses side, this is a great story to tell, and I wish the board has a lot to do with the fact that this number's in the red, but unfortunately, they aren't the superhuman people that you think they are, because a lot of that red number is really great about having a pool. It's going to pay. The big savings that we have here is the $9,500 in pool supplies, pool contract, and then $1,000 in pool supplies. We just didn't have to pay that this year because we don't have a pool. So of this $27,000, about $19,500 is directly related to the fact that we don't have a pool. Now, some of that is going to be will be transferred into the budget, like John said, to pay the engineer and stuff like that. So come the end of the year, when those expenditures come in, when those expenses have to get paid, you'll see this number come a little closer. But I still expect this to be in pretty good shape on the budget side. But there are some savings here that it's important that we take a look at. For instance, what Chris talked about, the irrigation system. We're going to save money there. Also, on the side of the landscape contract, I know the board hammered on the landscaper really hard. We saved a lot of money on our landscaping contract. So, from the standpoint of where we're at, I would say we're probably about $6,000, $6,500 under budget on expenditures, on expenses for the year, if you take the pool expenditures that we would have had and throw those out. Next. And this is the admin, the other expense line. Pretty close on all those. We're about $1,500 off. We spent a little bit more on miscellaneous admin expenses. At the beginning of the year, we kind of toyed with budgeting what we call just petty cash. But we didn't do that. I'd like to visit that again come next year when we put our budget together, because there are some things we spend money on. Our social programs, what we do with parties and things, those things aren't free. Plants that we buy, those types of things. And that's where most of this money has come from, is from the social programs that we do. And I think those are worthwhile. Those are things that definitely need to be. We just don't have a line on this one in the budget, so we need to plan for that budget next year. Some other things, we have a little bit more expenditure on our management fees. We're about $500 over, but not that much. I mean, that's not significant. And then we've also, our property taxes are a little higher than we budgeted. When we had budgeted property taxes last year, because the builder was paying the property taxes, and they were set up as a development, they had to pay this huge amount of property tax, which was in the tens of thousands of dollars. We knew that was going to get written down to, now we're just paying property taxes on just the community property. And it's a relatively low number. We just didn't know what that number was going to be. So we assumed it was going to be about $4,000, about taxes. Yeah, $4,000. But we don't really know what it's going to be. So that's we're trying to make it. Yeah, 600. And so it looks like it's going to be more like $1,000 a year. But we'll budget for that when it comes in next year. The other savings was on the property reserve study. We budgeted $4,000 for that. We managed to get that done for a little under $2,000. So we're pretty good shape. All told, we're setting at about $28,000 more so in the bank than we should have had or than we budgeted for. Again, 20,000 of that, 19,000 of that is because we haven't had a pool. And some of that will go away again here. You'll see those numbers gel a little closer. Any questions on the budget?
I just got one. What is
expense for the single homes, you have water and sewer, $7,500, what is that?
Water and sewer for single-family homes, that's mostly the general water and sewer. It's what we pay for. Most of those expenses are put together in general, but water and sewer is what we pay for irrigation. It's what we pay for the pool, if we have a pool. That's what we talking about.
I think you started to answer this question, but just can you clarify? Maybe this has been covered before and I missed it somewhere, but it seems like there are all the expenses on the single family, and then there's just a few here and there on that condo, which we obviously know they use a lot of the same things: the power, the pool when we have it, the electricity, the man cookies. How are the? I mean, are they shared? Or are they really all?
They are shared, and if Rob could explain what the relationship between the townhomes and the single-family homes are, and make it clear, we can't budget separately. We do budget separately from a line item standpoint, but as those revenues come in, we don't pay. Townhomes don't pay for certain things that the townhomes receive, and single-family homes pay for it. It all comes together as one. And I think legally, that's the way it has to be. We can't split those apart on a financial or legal basis.
What he's saying is there's one bucket that the money goes into, and it can't be separated. But on an accounting basis, that's how we have to account. It's separate.
Any other questions?
Basically, think of it as you and your sister-in-law. You all live in the same house, and you can budget it however you want, but you're all going to spend the money at the end of the year.
Yeah, and they're still going to drink the orange juice out of the fridge. That's right.
No, and I just want to make sure, because if we ever, I'm sure at some point fees are going to change, and we have, we want to understand why.
Right. Yeah. It does make for interesting budgeting. I actually prefer to budget together and just ignore the split. But for purposes, the original budget was set up this way, so we try to follow that pattern of the original budget. Ma'am?
I was just wondering, this pool contract, why do we still have a line item? We're not paying for a pool contract.
Well, if you'll see, there's nothing under the pool contract. We still have a line item for it, but we haven't made any expenditures on the pool contract.
Okay, so we're just.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the year, we didn't know we were not going to have a pool. So we had to budget for the pool contract. Now, again, like I said, some of the money that was budgeted for the pool contract went up paying for the engineer and some of the other things that we did, but we won't pay a pool contract this year. We didn't know that at the beginning of the year.
Okay, so we're just gonna leave it there for next year.
Yeah, it'll be in there as a line item because we certainly budgeted for it, but at the end of the year, it'll all get balanced out. And basically what happens at the end of the year is money that's left over, money that we took in as revenue that didn't get spent, ends up going into reserves. So it pays for the future maintenance of the community, maintenance of the townhomes, upkeep of the pool, that.
Or possibly a playground.
And that's something again, as far as the board's concerned, I'd really like to bring that up to the board this year. I think we could. I don't have kids, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't like to see a playground in the home. That's a whole other. Anything else?
We're down to less than 10 minutes, and we've got 2 more items we're going to quickly update on. The reserve study update, John, if you just want to.
Alrighty, for the reserves. What the reserves are, especially on the townhome part, that's going to be the bigger part of the reserves. Meaning at some point the roofs will have to be replaced, the siding will have to be replaced, there's exterior work to do over time. So we actually hired a firm to come out, do an inspection, and put together what an estimate would be for maintenance and repairs on our entire Almond Glen area. And the study is going to be back Monday or Tuesday to be able to review that. So long story short is, that's going to give us a really good idea of how much money per year we would be required to put into the reserve funds so that we wouldn't end up in a situation where there wasn't enough money in our reserve accounts to pay for expected repairs. Money is going in, balances are building up, and so stay tuned for the next meeting. The next board will be able to give a good, clear update on how we stand on our reserve funding.
Last thing that we put on there to talk about was just a quick townhome update. I don't know if, I think I know, is there anybody here from the townhomes? I recognize you, I forgot about that. Good, townhomes. There's some maintenance issues that we want to take care of with the townhomes. Like everything else, we had to kind of prioritize things. There's some issues with a little bit of rotting of some wood around some of the doors. There's issues with power wash, there's issues with caulking, there's issues with paint. Those are the immediate things. And then there's some other sideline issues that are kind of below that even. The one thing we did have a chance to do was get some of the roofs inspected. We had a few issues pop up with the roofs that we went ahead and had repairs done on right away, because obviously roofs are a bad thing if they're leaking. The next thing is to pressure wash the buildings. We've run into a couple issues with that. We don't have a general main line that we can just hook the water into and run off of, so we have to pressure wash from each individual unit. Obviously, we can't get a company to come in and do that. We need to figure out a way to bill, so we've got to work through a few of those issues. One of the things we were trying to do was avoiding paying somebody to bring in a thing of water. If they bring in a truck full of water, it's $1,000 added on. So we've been trying to find a way to do it in a cost-effective manner. We've got that kind of sorted out. Now we're just getting the bidding process done, and all of it just takes more time than we'd like most of the time. But the next thing to be done is pressure washing. Then once everything's cleaned up, they can look through and see what caulking needs to be replaced. Once the caulking's done, from there we can go through and we can start planning for painting. We also have to look at the difference in the age of the different buildings, so we're just sorting it into priority status. But those things are coming. It's just a matter of getting it sorted out. The money's there for it. It just needs to be done as most cost-effective way as possible. If there's any questions about the townhome stuff, as always, grab me and ask me any questions about it. All right, the last thing that needs to be done now is I'm going to go ahead and dismiss at this time the board. They're no longer the board. I'm no longer on the board. I am no longer the president of the association. At this point, I'm just the chairman of this meeting itself. We have new board members to announce. You guys can sit. The election results came back, and the new board members will be Virginia Poe, Cindy McIntyre, Alicia Jones, Trey Hasty, and I'll be returning for a second year. Thank you everybody for coming out today. If we didn't have the people to get the meeting done, we couldn't get it done. I can definitely say as a board member, I'll be here to answer any questions. I'll be loading stuff up, packing things up. If you had a question that didn't get answered, please grab me and ask me. Better to get it directly from me than anybody else. The next step we have to do as a board is we have to meet at some point and decide who's going to fill what officer positions. We'll try to announce that in the next few weeks here and get that sorted out. There's no time to rest at all. There are a bunch of issues that these guys don't even know they just stepped into, and get ready. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Rob.
Somebody. I'm not going anywhere. No,
Congrats. Congrats. We'll see. I will be still involved. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Okay. So, oh, we are? Yeah, we're still recording. We got